This was the game of Pokemon Go. This was the real game, the shadow game, getting you into a place where we have predicted that you will be. People playing the game had no idea. So they used the rewards and punishment of the game to herd you through the city to the places that were paying for your body.
Wat gebeurt er eigenlijk met je foto's op Facebook? En Pokémon Go ontmaskerd als kinderlokker. Harvard-professor Shoshana Zuboff wordt al de Karl Marx van onze tijd genoemd, omdat ze met haar monumentale boek The Age of Surveillance Capitalism de verborgen en dubieuze mechanismes blootlegt van onze digitale economie. Volgens Zuboff wordt onze persoonlijke ervaring door Silicon Valley gekaapt en gebruikt als grondstof voor extreem winstgevende digitale producten.
How all this comes into play when I buy a pair of shoes on the internet?
Well, you know, some people will say to me, but Professor Zuboff, I like those targeted ads. They're so useful, or I enjoy personalized services. Sometimes people will say, you know, I have nothing to hide, so I don't care what they take. Each one of these statements is a profound misconception of what's really going on. We think that the only personal information they have about us is what we've given them. And we think we can exert some control over what we give them. And therefore we think that our calculation, our trade-off here, is something that is somehow under our control, that we understand it. What's really happening is that we provide personal information, but the information that we provide is the least important part of the information that they collect about us.
Google weet altijd waar we zijn en waar we aan denken, dankzij hun navigatie- en zoekmachine. Facebook kent onze hobby's, voorkeuren en vrienden. Maar Silicon Valley weet nog veel meer van ons, omdat ze veel meer informatie halen uit digitale sporen die we onbewust achterlaten. Spelfouten in je zoektermen, populaire kleuren van buttons, hoe snel je typt, hoe snel je rijdt. Restdata.
Way back at the beginning, back in the year 2000, 2001, 2002, back in those days, these data were considered just extra data. They were considered waste material. And people called them things like digital exhaust or data exhaust. Eventually, it was understood that these so-called waste materials harbored these rich predictive data.
Hey everyone, welcome to F8. Today, we are going to talk about building a privacy-focused social platform. The future is private.
The companies like to say, we collect data so that we can improve our service. And that's true. They collect data, and some of it is used to improve the service to you. But even more of it is analyzed to train what they call models, patterns of human behavior. So once I have big training models, I can see how people with these characteristics typically behave over time. And that allows me to fit your data right into that arc and to predict what you're likely to do, not only now, but soon and later. This is what I call behavioral surplus. These data streams filled with these rich predictive data. Why surplus? Because right from the start, these were more data than was required to improve products and services.
Als je het behavioral surplus, de complete gedragsdata van honderden miljoenen mensen hebt, kun je op een gegeven moment de voorkeuren van specifieke groepen voorspellen. Van populaire schoenen voor mannelijke managers tot het favoriete restaurant van bewoners in een bepaald postcodegebied. We hebben geen idee wat de algoritmes op dit moment over ons kunnen voorspellen en welke gedragsdata ze daarvoor hebben gebruikt. Het kopen van bepaalde shampoos kan al essentiële informatie over ons prijsgeven. Zo berichtte de New York Times dat een supermarktketen wist wanneer een meisje zwanger was, voordat ze dat zelf misschien wist of kenbaar wilde maken. Het supermarktalgoritme ontdekte dat het meisje van geurende shampoos overstapte naar minder sterk ruikende producten. Omdat het reukvermogen van zwangere vrouwen omhoog gaat, ging het supermarktalgoritme ervan uit dat dit meisje zwanger moest zijn. Haar vader wist dit niet, maar kreeg wel de aanbiedingen van babyproducten. Dankzij de analyse van triljoenen bytes aan gedragsdata die we onbewust achterlaten in het digitale domein, kent Big Tech ons soms beter dan we onszelf kennen.
They can predict things like our personality, our emotions, our sexual orientation, our political orientation, a whole range of things that we never ever intended to disclose. Let's say I put my children's birthday party photo album on the web, on the Facebook pages. What we don't understand is that the most important thing there are not the photos per se. It's the predictive signals that these companies can lift from the photos. It's not just my face, but it's allowing them to have the face so that they can analyze the hundreds of muscles in my face.
Het uploaden van onschuldige kiekjes op je Facebookpagina kan onvoorziene gevolgen hebben. Zo worden onze gezichten gebruikt om algoritmes te trainen voor gezichtsherkenning. En we hebben geen idee wat er met die gezichtsherkenningssoftware gebeurt.
These data streams with these rich predictive signals are fed into the new factories, the computational factories, analyzed for predictions of human behavior, and these predictions are then sold. Who are they sold to? They're not sold to us. We are not the customers. They're sold to businesses, to business customers who want to maximize our value to their business, whatever it may be. They use information from our faces, which we've given billions and billions of photos to Facebook to train models for facial recognition. Those models are then sold to military operations, some of them in China. And those Chinese operations do many things, including imprisoning the Uyghur, a subset of the Uyghur Muslim population in China, in what is rightly regarded as an open-air prison, where they actually don't have to have people behind bars because they track and follow them constantly through facial recognition.
De kennis die wordt verkregen met onze restdata kan aan iedereen worden verkocht. Gezichtsherkenningssoftware kan bijvoorbeeld worden verkocht aan een Chinees bedrijf dat meehelpt met de onderdrukking van de Oeigoeren in China of het opsporen van voorvechters van democratie in Hongkong. Zo kunnen onze dierbare familiefoto's door Facebook worden gebruikt om autoritaire regimes te faciliteren. En onze privacy komt niet in gevaar, want onze gezichten worden niet doorverkocht. Het gaat om de restdata die van onze gezichten wordt afgeschraapt.
It's very difficult to have a concept of this for a very good reason. It's not because we're stupid. It's because these processes have been disguised. They operate in stealth. They have been engineered to be indecipherable, to be undetectable, to create ignorance in a vast group of all of us that they call users. Our ignorance is their bliss. The term surveillance capitalism is not an arbitrary term. Why surveillance? Because it must be operations that are engineered as undetectable, indecipherable, cloaked in rhetoric that aims to misdirect, obfuscate, and just downright bamboozle all of us, all the time.
Een grote groep Pokémon Go-spelers heeft met elkaar afgesproken in Leeuwarden. Samen gaan ze de stad door om zoveel mogelijk Pokémon te vangen. Alleen in Nederland al spelen ruim 1,3 miljoen mensen het spel.
A very interesting experiment occurs in the guise of an augmented reality game called Pokémon Go.
In het spel loop je rond in de echte wereld. Op allerlei plekken zitten Pokémon verstopt. Je moet er dus naartoe gaan om ze te verzamelen.
What are we not seeing when Pokémon Go is introduced in our country?
It's important to understand that Pokémon Go is an augmented reality game that was incubated, developed inside Google for many years. Google being the first pioneer of surveillance capitalism, the inventor of surveillance capitalism. It was invented, Pokémon Go was invented in Google, incubated there for many years, developed there, led by a man named John Hanke. And John Hanke invented an operation called Keyhole, which was invested in by the CIA and later purchased by Google and called Google Earth.
Google Earth was a CIA startup initially?
Yes, Google Earth was something called Keyhole, and it was a CIA-invested startup. So it's important to understand that Pokémon Go was not some happy little game that just got launched into the world by a toy company or something. When they decided to bring Pokémon Go to the public, they didn't want to bring it as a Google game. They brought it to market as Niantic Labs, which no one had ever heard of. Just a cool startup with this cool game. So now we have this Google augmented reality game, and it turns out that the big game that is on top of the little game that the children are playing is a game that precisely emulates the logic of surveillance capitalism. So in surveillance capitalism, in the original version online, we predict the click-through rate, and we sell the click-through rate to the advertiser, who pays to get clicks on their website, clicking through ultimately to the buy button. That's what they're hoping for. Now, in the real world, business customers paid Niantic Labs, the Pokémon Go company, paid Niantic Labs not for click-through, but for the real-world equivalent of click-through, which is called footfall. To actually get real bodies with their real feet into real business establishments so that their feet would go fall, 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 tap, tap, tap across the store or across the restaurant or across the bar in order to buy something.
So I could order by Niantic Labs a Pokemon in my ice cream parlor, for instance.
All of these establishments, they're buying what are called, here's the term, lure modules. Modules like a gym that lure people to you. Not so that they will come and be happy, but so they will come and spend money in your shop or your restaurant. Starbucks, McDonald's, everybody was making money. Everybody was making money. Niantic Labs was making money, and all these businesses were making money. And the people playing the game had no idea. So they used the rewards and punishment of the game to herd you through the city to the places that were paying for your body. This was the game of Pokemon Go. This was the real game, the shadow game, getting you into a place where we have predicted that you will be, so that our predictions are worth more. If I can guarantee you're actually going to be there, my prediction that you're going to be there is worth a lot more. Economies of action are how I guarantee that. And Pokemon Go was a large-scale experiment, a global-scale experiment in economies of action using remote control means to automate behavior, to engineer behavior, to fulfill others' commercial ends while you are having a great time. You are intended to be in the feeling of being served. You are intended to be saturated with convenience so that you will not notice and you will not complain. And all of this shadow operation will remain hidden because you will not ask questions, because you're so busy being entertained.
De problematiek in het hele mobiliteit wordt in ieder geval precies hetzelfde als de problematiek wat wij nu al op het internet meemaken, met je smartphone meemaken. Dat je eigenlijk zonder het te weten betaalt met je privacy. Want die auto weet precies wat je doet, waar je naartoe gaat. Er zitten 15 camera's op een beetje moderne auto dadelijk. En ja, als jij toegang hebt tot 1% van alle auto's, dan weet jij alles wat er op de wereld gebeurt. Ja, als die data dadelijk meer waard gaat worden dan het kost om met een auto te rijden, wie weet krijg je dadelijk een gratis auto aangeboden. En je betaalt met je privacy. Net als met al die gratis diensten die je van Google krijgt, gaat het daar misschien ook met het autorijden worden. En die data is zoveel waard, daar zit iedereen op de azen. En daarom wil Google ook graag in die wereld van automotive, want op zich valt er met auto's niet zo heel veel te verdienen. En die gaan die auto als paard van Troje gebruiken om aan al die data te komen.
We even now see it coming full circle back to the birthplace of mass production in the Ford Motor Company, where the CEO of Ford Motor now says, you know, we want market capitalization like Facebook and Google. How do we get it? Well, instead of figuring out how to make a car that runs carbon-free, what we're going to do is repurpose our automobiles as surveillance vehicles, and we're going to stream data from the 100,000 people who are driving around in Ford cars. We're going to combine that with the data we have from Ford Credit, where he says, we already know everything about you. And these data sets are going to put us on a par with the likes of the great surveillance capitalists, and who wouldn't want to invest in Ford Motor under those circumstances? So this is a document written by Facebook executives in Australia, and what they told their business customers there was that we have so much data about 6.6 million Australian young adults and teenagers. As a result of that, we can predict mood shifts. We can predict when they feel stressed, fatigued, anxious, inferior, frightened. All of these kinds of very personal feelings. And we can alert you the exact moment when they are most likely to need a confidence boost. Let's say there's a young person who's contemplating a date over the weekend, and it's now Thursday night and their anxiety is peaking and they need a confidence boost. If you send them an ad for a sexy black leather jacket, send it right now, offer free delivery, tell them you'll have it at their door by the time they wake up in the morning, give them a discount coupon, right? You're gonna sell that black leather jacket. Do it now, and we can tell you the exact moment when they are at peak vulnerability. That is real. That's happening. And if you don't believe me, all you have to do is just pivot a few degrees to something that happened in 2018. And what is that? That came from yet another whistleblower. His name was Chris Wiley. And he told us about Cambridge Analytica.
Chris Wiley, een ex-werknemer van het Engelse Cambridge Analytica, luidde de klok over de methodes van dit politieke marketingbedrijf. Cambridge Analytica gebruikte de Facebook-data van meer dan 80 miljoen Amerikanen om te analyseren hoe de Amerikaanse kiezer het best gemanipuleerd zou kunnen worden.
One of the things that Chris Wiley said when he broke this story with The Guardian back in 2018 is he said, we knew so much about so many individuals that we could understand their inner demons. And we could figure out how to target those demons, how to target their fear, how to target their anger, how to target their paranoia. And with those targets, we could trigger those emotions. And by triggering those emotions, we could then manipulate them into clicking on a website, joining a group, telling them what kind of things to read, telling them what kind of people to hang out with, even telling them who to vote for. Now, that is absolutely no different than what Facebook aimed to do with these young people, innocent young people in Australia and New Zealand, to target their inner demons. The same mechanisms, the same methods, only pivoted just a few degrees from commercial outcomes to political outcomes. Cambridge Analytica was nothing but a parasite on a huge host. And that host is surveillance capitalism.
This is the next chapter for our services.
But as we have seen, most of the data that they use to feed into the factories, to produce the predictions, these are data that we haven't given. Or if we've given, we don't even know that we've given because it came in our exclamation points. It came in our walk in the park and picking up the cadence of our voice and the timbre of our voice, all rich predictive signals. So no matter how much data ownership we claim, or accessibility, or portability, most of the data is in the shadow operation. And the shadow operation is never coming to us. We will never get those data. They claim them as data that they own. They took it from our lives. They took it from our private experience without our permission. They analyzed the data. They made it into products. They sold the products and they took the profit. Illegitimate profit because they took it at the beginning without asking, without our knowledge. Recall, bypassing our awareness. These 20 years have been the honeymoon for surveillance capitalism because they have been 20 years largely unimpeded by law. Unimpeded by law. Why? Well, the most important reason is that they're doing things that have never been done before, so there are no laws against it. Just like factories employing children, in a mass production factory. There hadn't been anything like that before, and there were no laws against it. And it took our societies a while to sort of wake up. We stood up against the extractive companies and their violence, the companies that came to be known as the Gilded Age, the companies where we turned around and we called their leaders robber barons. That's not what they were called at the time. At the time, they were worshipped as these, wealthy gods and geniuses who knew how to wield the might of machines and capital. If we had been trying to stop it, to curtail it, to outlaw it for every one of these 20 years, and we had utterly failed, then I might, put my chin in my hand and say, gosh, I'm starting to feel like things might be really bad. But that's not the case. We haven't even tried yet to stop it. Look, surveillance capitalism is 20 years old. Democracy is several centuries old. I bet on democracy. when we decide to resist surveillance capitalism right now while it lives in the market dynamic, we are also preserving our democratic future and the kinds of checks and balances that we will need going forward in an information civilization if we are to preserve freedom and democracy for another generation.